Go. We are on the air.
Thanks so much. Here we are at the June MBTA Rider Oversight Committee. Thanks everyone for coming tonight. If you didn't sign when you came in, please do next to Eric before you head out. Let's start the meeting tonight with public comments. I saw there was at least one person who signed up, and then, yes, great.
Hi, Greg Laskowski, member of the ROC, but today I'm obligated to just briefly do a public comment ahead of our normal session. As a daily Redline user, I just wanted to, on behalf of the Redline riders, continue to express the frustration of all Redline riders and the difficulty in service that's ongoing currently as a result of the derailment that happened a few weeks ago. The delays are real. It is happening every day, and it's going to happen every day through at least Labor Day. It's only 15, 20 minutes, but 15, 20 minutes for folks trying to get home and head to the commute both ways is difficult. I understand that the train derailed in the worst possible spot and took out the worst possible thing to take out. But all I'm here to say is, on behalf of those of us who ride that red line every day, I hope that the T and Mass DOT are doing everything possible to remediate the situation and bring the red line back up to full capacity and full speed as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thanks. And is there another one?
Hi. Hello? Hello?
I don't know if it's plugged in.
It's okay. Anyway, I'll talk. Barry Steinberg, Association for Public Transportation. I also ride the Red Line every day, and I've had plenty of time to think about certain things. And I'll just bring them out. There was an automatic announcement early Sunday morning, this was the 16th of June, at North Quincy Station. Attention passengers, the next Braintree train is stopped 39 stops away. Now, I was wondering if that is New Hampshire or Springfield. There was a news item this past Friday that the signals will be restored in September. Now this contains a hint to me that they're going to do it properly rather than a slapdash job. That's hopeful. That's hopeful rather than informed information on my part. Another thing is that this derailment was in a location that was likely the most susceptible to major damage and the most difficult to repair. The major signal bungalows in the Red Line system are there. They're between two major highways below a close tolerance overpass at a major intersection of rail routes, including one-track commuter rail line, and this was formerly nicknamed Malfunction Junction. There's also, this is adjacent to major public housing complex. A lesson from this is that people from the T Engineering and T Police should jointly study the infrastructure of the T to present initiatives to, as I would say, harden key facilities against terrorism or planned sabotage. Although I'm not proposing that happen. Finally, personal observations. Under normal conditions, there are minor annoyances like dirty stations and cars, broken floor tiles, panhandlers, escalators not working. We get used to these things. But when there's a continuing turmoil on the line, these other things seem to get magnified. Now, I have not heard about the following, the actual derailment. I found that sometimes the cars seem to buck when moving and then bang back down on the track. My question was this a derailment waiting to happen?
Thank you.
Thanks, Eric.
Any other public comments before we move on? We'll give you a chance at the end as well. Okay. Next item on the agenda is subcommittee reports.
No, we do MCOP first, just to give Brian a chance to.
Okay.
Scrambling to get the notes up. Didn't expect that to come so soon.
Do you want me to frame it up a little bit?
Sorry?
Do you want me to frame it up a little bit?
Sure.
So
If you don't mind.
we had guests from Keolis, head of, I'm not remembering the exact titles, head of customer experience, the head of the passenger information center, I believe, and I don't remember the marketing, someone from marketing, is that right?
Yes.
Yeah. Talking about different, each of those points of view on Keolis. They each gave a little bit of an overview and answered a lot of questions, and we ended with a little bit of actual discussion between them and some of the MBTA folks, which was interesting.
Okay, thanks for filling that in. Yes, our guests were Linda Dillon and Frank, the Passenger Information Center head, and Elizabeth, who's the head of marketing for Keolis. Both Frank and Elizabeth are relatively recent hires at Keolis, but case in point, a success story brought about by Elizabeth in the marketing department of Keolis is the $10 weekend fare, not the fare itself, but the advertising push to really publicize that $10 weekend fare. They said, she said, and Linda Dillon of customer service said that their expectations, again, double check me from people who were there, their expectations of the return on the, or the response to that weekend $10 fare were exceeded. Their expectations were exceeded as far as the number of trips over the entire $10 weekend program. So it's apparently a great success, not just a success, but a great success, and they intend to continue it indefinitely. They're extending the marketing for the $10 weekend fare into partnering with local businesses that align with station locations, and they are even going to extend it out to partnering with local transit like the RTAs and even non-RTA local shuttles for that last mile, so that if there is a business that's beyond what somebody would consider a healthy walking distance, but there is in that region some kind of a private quote-unquote trolley for tourists, Keolis is going to engage them. So that's the positive stuff. Another thing to note from Keolis and marketing is that they have been, I'm not sure over what period of time, but they have been targeting new home buyers with a mass market mailing. So essentially they're mining the records for home sales and sending a flyer advertising Keolis commuter rail services to people who have recently purchased a home. I think that's pretty ingenious thinking. Go ahead.
But even more so, if I remember right, it was a series of 3.
Yes, thank you for that. Yes.
Targeting different aspects of, I don't remember the details, but do you know your nearest station? Here's what you can, that several aspects, with the hope that at least one of those would make it up on refrigerators and remind people to use those services in their new place right from when they move in.
Exactly. I would like to get a copy of some of those. She didn't have any with her, but that's a follow-up item. I'd like to see how good they are. If the marketing efforts for the weekend pass are anywhere as good as, or rather, I see, if the new homebuyer flyers are anywhere as good as the weekend pass marketing effort, then it's going to be, I'm sure, beautiful. As a side note, for the weekend pass marketing campaign, they're also putting up specific journeys on, I don't know if I have the website. I'll email the website to the group, unless I already did. Did I mail out to the mailing list the website? It's like something like travelmass.com. I'll follow up. If I didn't already send it out, I will. They, for example, have a brewery, multi-brewery visit, all accessible by commuter rail. There's an entire North Shore Saturday itinerary, which visits Lynn, where I live, so I'm particularly pleased about that. I had nothing to do with it. But it's Lynn, Salem, and something else on the North Shore. And there's a third one that escapes me right now. But that's their continuing approach is going to be, again, targeting itineraries where people can spend an entire day with nothing necessary but commuter rail at a $10 fare. Pretty impressive. Regarding the Passenger Information Center, which they call the PIC, P-I-C, that's where they do all of the monitoring and information gathering, and which then feeds out. It's notable, I think, that Keolis in their customer service center has one group dedicated to assessing the situation, gathering the information, sending out things like T-alerts, managing the dissemination of the information, and there's an entirely separate team which is handling the calls, and that second team is essentially receiving information from the group right next to them. So it allows for, as I see it, a pretty good amount of focus on a specific set of tasks. So not everybody in the customer service center is trying to be all things to all people. They've got the two groups, one of which, like I said, focusing on assessing what's happening when, where, and the second group is handling the actual customer contact. Seems like it's going extremely well. Case in point, Frank said, again, Frank's the head of the Passenger Information Center, he said that their average call wait time is 7 seconds. He didn't say, and I didn't get a chance to press him on what time of the day that was. I mean, I'm assuming it's probably an average over a week. Maybe it's an average over a day, but still an average of 7-second wait time. Pretty impressive. They said that they have 300 to 400 calls a day is typical. So if they're able to do a 7-second wait time, still getting 300 or 400 calls a day, most of which are inquiries about service or how to use the service. Sounds like that's a success. Linda pointed out that the single biggest limitation on Keolis offering more and or better service is the lack of equipment, meaning coaches and locomotives are constrained in number either by the total amount that exists owned by the MBTA or the amount that is able to be put into service at any one moment because of inspections, service, repairs, etc. Again, that's coming right from Linda, the head of customer service of Keolis. Equipment numbers, the lack of the coaches and locomotives is the single biggest factor affecting their ability to deliver as much service as we riders would want or as good service as we would want. That's a capital aspect that is in the hands of the MBTA. As far as purchasing goes, Keolis is on the hook for the maintenance, of course. We then moved on to talking about how the commuter rail schedules go into effect at a calendar cycle that does not align with the bus schedule cycle. The note that I took down was that bus schedules, for example, are effective in June, which is typical for when the school year is finishing, and they put into place schedules for trips that don't need to service school kids. But Keolis, for example, puts into their calendar new schedules in May and again in October, because Keolis schedules based on the warm weather or the better than winter weather to be able to do outside track maintenance. So there was I thought of it as a bit of a meeting of the minds there where Rob and Linda, I think knowing each other, but not necessarily knowing each other's role, it seemed, had a moment of, actually I think it was Rob who spoke up and said, hey, I produce the bus schedules, can we team up and perhaps align the commuter rail schedule cycle with the bus schedule cycle? And Linda, to my eye, was, oh, well, yeah, we should talk about that. I don't know if that conversation has never happened before, or if it's just that Rob and Linda happened to be the right people at the right time, but it seemed like there was really, that subcommittee meeting 2 weeks ago fostered a connection that might lead to unnotable quality of service improvement for people who use both bus and commuter rail. Not necessarily changing the amount of time that somebody waits for the commuter rail at a bus, but certainly make it more streamlined so that someone who's taking a bus and a commuter rail train doesn't have to adapt to a new schedule in May for the commuter rail and then June for the bus. If they can align them, somebody just has to adjust maybe only twice a year, perhaps.
I thought the objective really was to make people wait less time.
Could be that too, yeah.
Because that's the real benefit. But maybe it doesn't, maybe I just misunderstood stuff, so.
It's probably all of the above.
Yeah.
And a final note, we talked, probably about the last half hour of the meeting, talked about the details, some of the nuts and bolts issues of the bus substitute operations during the Green Line derailment that happened the weekend right before the Red Line derailment. We talked about the details of the derailments themselves, and
this is all because we had another special guest.
Yes. Oh, sorry, that's right. I didn't mention,
Mr. Carney.
yes, Dave Carney, Assistant GM or Deputy GM for bus operations. I always get that wrong. I think
Yeah,
he's,
some adjective GM.
yeah. I think he's AG, what, do you know what's AGM? Is it Assistant?
I don't.
Associate? Yeah, okay, well, anyway, Dave
I
Carney,
just can't imagine it mattering.
yeah, head honcho of bus operations, how about that?
He's the chief of bus operations.
Yeah, exactly.
That's the most important.
Yep.
He knows bus stuff.
Yes, if it's bus and basically, if it's on rubber wheels, it's Dave Carney.
Which is why obviously the topics of interest were the two most recent derailments, but because we had the head of bus operations, we got what we could out of the head of bus operations, which was, what was your reaction from a bus perspective to try to get bus replacement up and going for both the Green Line and the Red Line?
Right.
Can we also talk about the elevators being down and how they have to run these crazy buses that nobody gets on?
A little bit.
That was,
A lot of that was the previous meeting.
Previous,
but-
yeah,
Yeah,
previous time.
but we did touch on it. One final note before I yield to the other subcommittee report is that the area around Broadway, we discussed, is the single biggest bottleneck when it comes to Red Line replacement service. First and foremost, if I recall correct, the sidewalks around the Broadway station area are very narrow, and there's a lot of traffic. So there's hardly any room for people to wait, and if people are waiting, then people who were just passing by, trying to get from point A to point B that happen to be going through the Broadway area, have to step out into the street. If they're stepping out into the street, they're interfering with the flow of buses to try to pick people up as the replacement shuttle. So it was, I believe it was Dave's opinion that, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but I think the gist of it was, if it would ever be possible to bypass the Broadway area when doing shuttle bus replacement or red line service, they would like to do so. Whether that meant...
I don't think so. I don't
No?
think he said that. No, Broadway is too important. You really
No,
can't bypass.
what he was saying was,
Please.
Rather than turn around there.
rather than turn around there,
Right.
even though they could continue red line service, even if red line service was fully operational between Broadway and South Station or Park, that it might be best to voluntarily cut the line further up at a different location, so you could flip, you'd flip around at either Park or South Station instead of flipping around the buses there, to avoid all the queuing and masses of people trying to get in and out of Broadway Station. Essentially,
Okay.
both red line station, the way it works now, or the way it worked in one of the recent incidents, was you have the entire red line dumping out onto Broadway and then trying to get on a bus, and there's just not the space for that. So if they need to cut the line, maybe they're better off cutting it further up. And I don't think this is the same way it happened in the most recent one. I don't remember, I worked from home that day when I found out the red line was dead.
So are you still working from home?
No, hence my public comment, I'm fighting a good fight every day. And they're honestly doing as well as they can. It's just what it is, it's herky-jerky out there right now. It's, you hurry up, train goes full speed, and then they just stop. They just sit, because they're manually clearing, and you gotta you wait for your turn to go.
Just saying, Broadway Station, even with everything is working, there are people on the sidewalks. It's crowded. The 47, the 9, the 10, they all come in and go out there, outbound and inbound. So the buses, they're always buses. So even without all the shuttle,
We actually learned there's kind of two head houses there at Broadway.
There's an old trolley head house right in the middle of the street.
Yeah, so apparently that old head house that's in the middle of the street in the island,
Yeah.
it's on the island because it was originally supposed to be a busway around that island. And so, but the problem is it doesn't have an elevator. There's no spot to put an elevator. So they built the head house, and whenever they built the head house decades ago, but then now they can't use it as the busway that they thought they might use it for, because it wouldn't be ADA compliant.
Same thing, I think Arlington stop. It's one of the reasons they don't have, open up, there's other interest in Arlington stop, and you don't open that one, it's not ADA compliant. And also,
That makes sense, yeah, because you guys go all the way down, the one that goes all the way down to Berkeley, essentially?
yeah. And so I guess he also made it clear there was nothing haphazard about the shuttle service, that they do have a book that they go by.
Thank you.
So they've thought these things out. Of course, they always do lessons learned from these incidents.
To be positive, the two positive things that he mentioned were, one is they get on the horn right away with some of the other bus carriers.
That was a issue.
So they get on with Yankee or one of the private carriers as needed. One of the challenges they have with that scenario, though, is that those are tour buses. They're not MBTA buses. They have one door.
Right.
So when you put those into service, it takes twice as long to load and unload.
Right.
So you end up getting these queuing problems where you could have a regular bus right behind a tour bus. If the tour bus takes 10 minutes to unload, the MBTA bus takes 3 minutes to load, the MBTA bus, you'll naturally stack them all up. But they use those for the green line derailment, because they happen to be having there's a reason for that, but they use it for the green line derailment. And then the other positive I guess we talked about is right by South Station is the post office. Technically, is that Dorchester Ave that continues up
Yes.
along the side of it? Dorchester Ave continues along the side of it, but it's kind of blocked off with gates, and it looks like a service road, but it technically still is Dorchester Avenue. They could call the post office up and get right of way to, he says 99 out of 100 times, they'll let them use go buses direct from Broadway to South Station via that road that no one else can go on, so that actually is a help to him.
That's all the notes that I had, and thank you very much for adding to that. I appreciate it.
Can I bring something up about bus operations at Sullivan, since you're on that topic? So, do other folks ever use Sullivan Station?
I used to up until about a month ago, on a regular basis.
I just, from time to time. Why?
So, they've reconfigured it.
I've seen that, yeah.
And it seems like it's been at least 6 months that there's just been a Jersey barrier preventing the buses from going out onto Washington Street towards Somerville and Cambridge. And at rush hour, the inability to do that, it takes them a very long time to circle around. They have to go through all the lights in Sullivan Square, and they could instead just get right on the route.
Before I stopped using Sullivan on a regular basis, I checked that out, and I haven't talked to an inspector or anyone.
It's still
official.
like that the last time I used the bus.
I got the impression that it was held up waiting for new traffic signal configuration.
The lights
at that
are
intersection.
in, but the
But they're not
lights are
active.
there.
Yeah, but they're not activated yet, right?
Well, sometimes they're on, the traffic
Even
lights
if-
are being used.
Even for that right turn where the Jersey barrier is?
Yeah, those lights that the buses will have to use are there and
And
they're
they're
lit. But
Okay.
they,
Yeah, that's happened since I was.
maybe there's some signal boxes missing or something, I don't know, but there's power to them. I mean, it just is an awful loss of time for,
Oh, absolutely.
and Sullivan's one of the busier bus stations. Anyway, I just wanted to flag that because you were talking about bus operations and Somerville.
I wonder if we can follow up on that, 'cause I have a sneaky feeling that it's one of those things where it's just a delay, different contractors. So like the people coming in to do the lights finally finished that up last month, and no one told the guy who's gonna come and move the Jersey barrier.
Yeah,
So it's
well,
just
having been in development and construction of housing for years in the beginning of my work life, I mean, it's just stunning how long this has been for a very small thing that would really help the T as well as the passengers. And right now, since all but one bus route in Somerville are off route because of the Green Line project and the bridges, only the 88 is en route, all the others have detours, and there's been no schedule adjustments, so, people understand it, but it's pretty much impossible for the bus drivers to stay on time, and occasionally the substitute bus drivers get lost. And, they need a passenger to, a friendly passenger to walk up front and help them get back on, which is fun.
that's a great, next time we have Dave Carney in a meeting, that's a great.
Yeah, I only
Topic.
occasionally make the marketing meeting, but I appreciate how.
No, but that's a good, we're always looking for interesting topics with him.
How smart the folks are that show up at those meetings from time to time and knowledgeable.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Well, I mean, I think it's a definite that I'm going to invite Dave Carney back or ask him to come back probably, I'm thinking August or September, if not earlier, because I'd like to hear about what the impact of the casino opening has been on.
I was at Assembly Square just on that point for kind of a grassroots community group reunion for 3 hours Sunday. There was no traffic.
You said reunion?
Well, just a grassroots group. There was,
Was that-
20 people from a grassroots group that did a lot of work in Somerville a decade ago.
Cool.
And we had decided to be there at that time before we knew that was when the official casino opening was. There were a lot of state troopers at key corners. There was no traffic issue. And some of it may have been that a lot of people who normally might have been on that route might have been scared away from anticipation. But really, it was, compared to a normal day, and certainly a normal weekday, it was very light. And Assembly Square was packed.
What time was you there?
I was there from about 2:30 to 5 in the afternoon.
Do you know where things stand on
connecting Assembly over to the casino at all?
I think that that's a good question. So for folks who don't know, in part because of the casino, and in part because of Charlestown being very concerned about the casino traffic in Boston being very concerned, and in part because of a really good activist group working on the Mystic River watershed, which is the most polluted watershed by far in Massachusetts. They are quite far along in design of a pedestrian and bike bridge from the Assembly Square Orange Line station to the casino, which would also allow bicyclists to cross there who can bicycle all the way down from Lynn. It's really a good point to cross the Mystic River. It was pretty fully designed, I mean, from a conceptual point of view, more than a year ago. They've done a lot of work. And one of the main benefits would be the 5,000 casino workers could just take, and some people would visit the casino and gamble or whatever, but they could use the Orange Line station, which is pretty new. And you just need, a efficient walkway from the station to the connection to the bridge. And it would be gorgeous, honestly. It's right over the river, have a beautiful view of the skyline, I assume. So I think that's, although it will be probably a lot more expensive than the station itself was. That subway station was built without a dollar T money. It would just be a very good multimodal connection. And the shuttle buses I see when I'm occasionally north of the river at Wellington, that they've been working on those for the casino for a long time. And they've been training their employees for a month, so they've been using the Orange Line connection on that side of the river, but at Wellington. But Assembly Square is actually just right across the river, so it's a more direct connection if they built that bridge.
I had forgotten about it until just now, but I had thought to look up, and now that I've remembered it, I think I will follow up looking up why, at least as far as I can tell, why the Amelia Earhart Dam that's on the Mystic, just upstream from where the commuter rail bridge is, which is just near the casino, just near Assembly, why that dam over the Mystic apparently does not allow pedestrian or
Yeah, so
bike
I
crossings.
can spend 60 seconds on that.
Oh, please,
if
you know.
have the time.
Yeah.
So years ago, that was a really big question for cyclists and others. That dam is very similar to the dam on the Charles. So both of them are modeled over a dam in Germany.
Right.
But basically water control, and flood control, and pollution control. And so, like the one over the Charles, especially in the summer, there's a lot of boat traffic because people keep small cabin cruisers upriver, and they have to go through a lot, which is not a problem. The locks work well. The original project was supposed to have a way for pedestrians and bikes to get over, kind of like happens at North Station, right? People can walk over or walk their bike over, and now there's the bike bridge there near North Station. But they never did it. And DCR's operations, not the planners at DCR are quite good. There's a couple really sharp planners who are stewards for the river and green space, but get good transit and multimodal connection. But the people who run that lock would not even let Senator Berrios on the lock property on a day when it had been no hassle for him to get on, when he was working with the T investigating that connection. And all along the T, because of their Charlestown yard, had offered up that, look, if you get the ped and bike stuff going on this side of the river, we will pull back and give you 20 feet or whatever you need to get from Assembly to Sullivan Square. The T could not have been nicer back then about that. Yeah. And the guys who ran the lock were just obnoxious. They would not let state elected officials go on it.
Who ran the lock?
It's DCR operations, but I wanna be clear to say that the DCR planners are terrific. I don't wanna cast stones at the whole agency. So,
Hmm.
and when it was proposed, that proposal got quite far, they would not consider it unless the ped and bike activists and the transit and, the transportation people agreed to build them a whole new pump system, which was going to be more than the bike and ped crossing there. They were kind of, well, you get the picture. And that could have changed, but it was pretty bad.
What was the time frame of all that?
That was probably as much as 15 years ago. I mean, people have had their eyes on it for a long time. And so I did attend the big planning meeting at Assembly Square when they had plans to show for that bridge. It was extraordinarily well attended, and people are very enthusiastic about it. So we'll see.
Thanks. Thank you for all
Well,
that.
thank you for
That's
letting me
helpful.
talk.
Other subcommittee reports?
Sure, so, in CIF, we went over a bunch of the relevant presentations from to FNCB. Specifically, we looked at AFC 2.0. We didn't really explain why it was delayed, and if anything, it seems like there is movement, they're continuing to move forward with planning for it, and specifically there was a discussion about proof of payment and the issues that, well, they're going to have a public input process. They're going to present to the public a plan or at least some ideas in the next month or two. And I think sometime in early fall, late summer, early fall, there'll be a chance for public input. One thing that I brought up that I was concerned about is because they mentioned almost as an aside, in the presentation that there will need to be legislative changes in order to make proof of payment possible. And I'm a little bit concerned that that's not going to be as easy to accomplish. As the aside might lead to believe, because all these things mean when it comes to legislation, it's all about the detail, and also there's an element of politics involved, and I don't know to what extent there is going to be an attempt to kind of neutralize that on a political level. But certainly, I'm a little bit concerned that that's going to be hard to achieve. Then I'm not saying they're leading us to believe anything at all. It's just my perception. That when that's mentioned as an aside as opposed to a big honking, like we need to get this done, that it might not. It could be a little bit of an issue, and I don't think it'll work without the legislation, because we're going to have to determine who it is that can demand that you show proof of payment and give them the authority to issue tickets and determine what the charge was going to be. So that's the FC 2.0. The capital investment plan, I like what I saw in it. We didn't comment as a group on it, and there was a study for Blue Line connector, to the red line, and what pleased me most was to see that there is a study on the power systems, because that is a weakness, and so I don't think that's just going to be a study and then nothing afterwards. I think it's like the study as a first step in the process, because that's also part of Focus 40. This is kind of a little more operational, but there is new RIDE software that's going in for the RIDE, and it's complicated, I know most things are, but it's a big deal, and we all, as we know, they had problems with the last entity that provided RIDE service, and then it just kind of went off my radar. I wasn't hearing anything about it, and then I saw his presentation, and it's a big change, and they or big installation. And they also said, they had a checklist. They said if everything didn't check off, they weren't going to move forward with it. So it'll be interesting to see, how that's going. In fact, is Melissa still working with that?
I'm not Melissa DeLay.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if she's working with that ride-specific software that you mentioned, but she's still the senior director of planning schedules, yes.
Yeah. So maybe talk about it. And also, I'm just kind of thinking myself now, kind of a little bit out loud. Maybe how about this? So RTAG has replaced the previous group. I'm forgetting the letters for it. ACT, right? So RTAG has replaced ACT.
I'm sorry, I'm not familiar with that.
Okay, as far as I know, ACT is not around anymore, and I think RTAG, the Regional Transportation, no, it's a Regional Transportation Advisory Group?
I think the A is access.
Access, the A is access, so, yeah, okay, well, I don't know, but ACT would be the entity that would be most interested, in the ride, so to the extent something else has replaced it, I'm kind of interested in what else has replaced it and what their take is on it, but just kind of thinking about it. Sorry. My screen go up. Let's see what else. That's about it. Oh, and they're doing a study on the commuter rail zones, and this is something that has been it's a legislative requirement. So there was a bill passed last year, I think, something with respect to commuter rail and act regarding commuter rail, something like that, and so they have to study this, and they have to get the report out by March of next year. And one of the things that we pointed out is that the jump from 1A to 2 is pretty dramatic. And there is a sense that causes people to not want to go from 1A to 2, and maybe that's a bit of a hindrance. In other ways, it maybe improve the chart, the zone fares, the zoning. I'm sorry, I'm a little sleep deprived because we have an agreement that if I snore, I get kicked out of bed.
Were you snoring?
Yeah, I snored, and after 4 hours, I got kicked out of bed, and I just didn't go back to sleep. But it's okay.
I think I'm following where you were going with this.
No, I'm not very clear. Go ahead.
This is the big jump between 1A and 2.
Yeah.
Would the goal be to lower 2 to encourage people not to jump? What behavior, which are they trying to do? Are they trying to equalize, raise 1A to be closer to 2, or are they trying to lower 2 to be more in line with 1A? So I guess what kind of behavior are they trying to encourage?
I'm pretty comfortable saying that there was no hint in this deck that I read, because if there was a hint and I forgot it, I feel like I forgot it. I don't feel like I'm forgetting it, so I don't think there was a hint as to how they were.
Just curious, you see it a couple different ways. So you
Right.
can see people driving into 1A when they should be parking in the 2, so you want to lower to 2 to try to relieve pressure off of 1A, or encourage from a longer term, not just cars daily. You could think from a development perspective, where are people building?
Right.
Are you trying to encourage more density around 2 because you have enough density around 1A?
Well, just in my personal opinion, again, just my personal opinion, I hope that they don't lower fares of Zone 2 because, at least without not rezoning a few stations, because Lynn is Zone 2. I'm a Zone 2 commuter rail rider. I think that's a decent distance. Anderson, Woburn is also a Zone 2, and that's on 128. You can go all the way from North Station to 128 and a Zone 2. Seems a little
that seems to
broad.
Well,
Because Dedham's too as well, right? So it's kind of.
Not sure about Southside.
It's kind of, it may just be,
well, they're,
if you think of the inner ring of.
Yeah, I mean, I just think that going from North Station to the 128 ring should be a little more than Subway, which isn't Subway close to 118?
What if we just extended all the subways to go out to 128?
Oh, how 1940s of you.
and,
I like it.
well, they're.
No, I mean, of course, yeah.
I'm sorry. I was just saying, one of the issues that they brought up was the whole kind of equity issue about me do all the zones, like zone 2, do they all like line up, maybe like for all the lines, maybe you like go out an equal distance on all the lines before your fare, kind of goes up, so I'm not sure what the public input part is going to be on this, I'm not sure if there is one, but it was, it's interesting to see that, and it kind of pointed out a deficiency on the part of the committee with respect to keeping up with legislation, so we're going to try and stay on top of the legislation, so that's that. I mean, later on, I'll hand out the revised version of the letter for the UPWP, and we will probably have a meeting in July to discuss the long-range transportation plan, and we'll probably take off in August. So that's it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Next item on the agenda is the election of co-chair. And so this is,
My last,
We forgot the bouquet of flowers.
that's okay. I feel their presence
What's your favorite flower?
here. It's right here, what do you mean? Oh, I don't know. But I believe it's here, and I feel the flowers, so it's good. So
Who's it?
who's it?
Who wants to be it? Oh, Brian.
I nominate Brian.
Yeah,
No, Brian doesn't want to be it.
We're talking about the co-chairs?
yeah, you just walked in and said who wants to be it, and you walked in.
Oh, no, thank you.
So you kind of want to be it, right, Stefan?
Well, I was saying I'm not against it, but I'm enjoying the co-chair of the subcommittee that I'm doing.
Right.
And I feel like when I'm doing all of this, it takes half of my brain away from really being able to
Right.
moderate. But that said, I'm not against it.
Right.
If somebody were to nominate me, I'd probably, oh, okay, I'll be truthful. If somebody were to nominate me, I'd accept it, but I think,
But you still have to run the meeting from there, right? Which is fine.
oh, yeah, I mean, it doesn't really matter where on the meeting. I'm just saying, I don't think, I think you guys deserve more than half of my brain to run the meeting, as opposed to half of my brain that goes to running this during the meeting, but
Right.
take that for what it's worth.
Yeah.
Well, I nominate Stefan.
I second it.
So then what are we going to do about GovCon?
That's also a challenge.
Because this isn't, I mean, as I said in the executive committee, it's not so much that I'm concerned about concentration of influence. It does the initial thought about when we initially did the bylaws was that, it was partly to make sure that he had enough input on the executive committee, because if we had, in theory, one person, who was a chair, co-chair of the subcommittee of the full crop, and a co-chair, the subcommittee did not reduce your executive committee membership by one, and what's to then stop that person also being a co-chair of another committee, so we just kind of, said one position, but there's the bylaw, and then there's what's happening you know, and what's happening is that, you know, you essentially have a concentration of influence anyways. I mean, and so it's really a matter of bandwidth. I mean, it's like, I mean, do you think you have the bandwidth, I mean, to do this and MCOP?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. So.
Can we table one of them? Or can we table the income?
Yeah, we can even table, I mean, we don't have to have two co-chairs for the full rock. I mean, we've had just one for a period, you know, and then the question is, Mr. Langevin, I mean, would you want to take a bigger role in CIF?
That may also be tough. You certainly do a lot. So you certainly do a lot for the CIF.
So
I don't know if I can fill your
You don't need
shoes.
to fill. You just need to occupy.
I mean, the only thing, and I need to leave it in a few minutes, the only other thing we need to think about is, do we need to look at membership again, and expanding membership again?
Yeah.
Yeah. The challenge we're fighting with here is not a deep bench.
Right.
And so we're just going back and saying folks to go multiple ways. That's the real challenge.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, through several cycles of this, it seems like the retention is pretty low. You know, it's usually you get like 2 a cycle. You know, so I'd say
You accept, you ultimately, you end up accepting 4 or 5 a cycle, and you get 2 that stay.
yeah, well, it's more than that usually.
Yeah.
This time it was even a lot more. You know,
You get,
and then
you 7 or 8, and then you still only, out of that 7 or 8,
right.
only 2 are here a year later.
Right. And so I would say, if someone wants to take the reins on that, I'll sit back, and I may participate in some interviews. I may not,
Well, that's fair. I think you've done it 3 times.
Yeah.
It's fair to not ask you to do it again.
And it's just, I mean, I just don't feel like doing it now. You know, I mean, maybe in a couple of years, I'll feel like doing it, because I kind of feel, maybe in a couple of years, it'll be worth it. But I think we'll pretty much end up kind of similarly to where we are now. But at the same time, I'm not going to stop. I'm not saying no by any stretch. And I have thrown my support behind another endeavor that came out of the executive committee meeting. So I want to say, for that one, it's like anything that person asked me to do, and we'll talk about it maybe in the business if you want, Carl. I'll really throw my effort into that. But right now, a new drive. But the only thing I really want to do sooner rather than later is purge the mailing list of the people who haven't shown up. It's been like 9 months. I'll take a little bit of the length of that one.
So why don't we put it on an agenda for next week?
Sure.
Next month to talk about membership drive. And I think maybe I don't know if we want to think about just changing, like not going through the interview process, making it more just a continuous, not making it a big deal every 2 years and just people, I don't know, dramatic change. Take all numbers.
No. I mean, sure, if the group wants to do that, but it's like,
We could do something where, instead of the formal sit-down interview process, which I know was onerous for you, so I certainly appreciate you went through. Maybe it's inviting somebody to the Rock to observe a few meetings, get to meet them, and get some input. We're going to be here anyway, right? So maybe something like that is the interview process. I don't know if that's kind of what you were thinking, or
like a hybrid,
even less formal.
like a test drive approach.
But I agree. I think we need more members. I think we function better when we have a larger group. I know it's tough to get them.
well, but I guess one part too is that, it's easy to have people sit around the table and just ask questions when someone of interest shows up. But what you really need is people who are going to read and get to know what's really going on, so that instead of just bitching when someone comes, about an issue. They are pretty informed about stuff, because otherwise, all they do is just, deny people who have done the work and who really knows the issue, the ability to ask questions, meaningful questions, because they're here, and we feel that we need to give them time, to ask because they're here. And so it's really not a matter of just getting seats, butts in the seats, but really, people who are going to do work, who will really want to run subcommittees in a very meaningful way, and really contribute, and not just be here. And so.
So, this is just off the top of my head, but, I mentioned that I went to the MIT transportation camp this year, which I do occasionally, and I don't know, there were 300 or 400 people there, pretty much all transit activists, some from out of the country, some from Hawaii, and of course most from the region. Many of them with pretty good education, some of them had transportation educations from MIT. And that's probably the third one I've been to. And, a number of the members of this group have presented there from time to time, including myself, but James and others when we were working on the university card.
Right.
They went over there. And two other things. There are starting to be some collaboration among, there's probably 24 groups that have an interest in transportation that are out there. Chris Dempsey's one, he's been focused on highways, but a lot of them are focused on transit. And there's a lot of interest in transportation with regard to climate, right? At this point, years and years ago, transportation competed with energy production to be as to which was the biggest sector of climate impact. Now it's not even close. Transportation is more than double energy sector of climate impact and way more than anything else, like buildings. So there's a lot of other people, not so much in the space that we've kind of focused on the last year or two, which is a little bit more closely cleaved to the T and to kind of the perfunctory process as it's been happening here and the way it's been happening here. But I think if you step it up into the next orbit, there's a lot of people in the space. And I think there's going to have to be a lot of people in the space. It seems like the climate, two things. The system is falling apart, right? There's no question that the spending has not caught up to break even with erosion of the system. And the other thing is that I'd say the last 2 years, climate issues seem a lot more real and a lot more serious. Among other things, the floods in Boston have been 3 out of 5 highest in history. 4 of which have happened in the last 50 years, 1 of which happened in 21, the last century. But
So what's the take home?
well, I think the take home is that there is going to be a lot more focus on transportation and specifically on transit. You can't, if you're serious about climate, you can't focus on roadways. It doesn't make any sense. The only thing you can focus on is electrified transit. You certainly can't focus on diesel transit. And we don't count black carbon, but if we did, diesel rail would be the single worst transportation asset we could use by quite a bit because of the black carbon. And as that stuff gets more and more serious for other people, they're going to be in the space because they're going to have to be making capital decisions that are larger than the capital decisions that, notwithstanding all the money that the Secretary and the Governor have put into play, it's clear it's not being deployed as fast as the system is collapsing, or as fast as the need for some kind of revolution in transportation systems.
Just checking in. So, do I understand right? Your point is that with more people and interest in environmental concerns and transit being an important factor to addressing environmental
It
concerns.
it should
That's a
be, it
potential
should really
place
rise to the top of people's lists. And it,
So those groups and those people are a place to potentially look for.
I think so, and, you know, really high volume, effective public transit should be at the top of the list of answers, along with walking and biking.
Just want to check.
Yeah, no, I'm done, thanks for letting me throw that in.
So we're still
So,
on the election of co-chair topic.
yeah, there
Digressing.
was technically a second there, so are we voting?
Can I ask a question? Eva, were you interested in staying on as co-chair, or are you interested in stepping down?
I'm interested in stepping down.
Okay.
Thank you.
Right, so Craig's question is the nomination, right?
Yeah, so are we gonna vote on the nomination, because there was a second, or are we gonna table? I think,
Well, I'm fine moving forward.
Yeah, he can always step down,
Yeah, yeah.
you know. You can have it for 1 month if somebody else
We
wants to
can
take
shake
over.
out.
No, I accept the nomination and I will give best effort.
Sure. Sure. So
So
there's,
is it in favor?
yes,
So all in favor?
yes,
Aye.
Unanimous.
All
opposed?
I think that was-
Any
That
abstentions?
was all the members.
Oh, he's trying not to apologize.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Do you want the flowers now?
Maybe ask for the headache of the phone.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding.
Any minute else.
Before Craig leaves, just one, no, if I'm not mistaken, there's nothing in the bylaws of this committee that dictates or prevents any particular method of advertising and accepting new members. Is that my recollection correct as far as you're concerned?
I believe that's.
Okay, so that being said, I don't know who first suggested it, but I'll either second or I'll just reinforce the idea that inviting people who are interested to attend the regular public meeting, fourth Tuesday of the month, and see what it's like. And then I'm going to extend that idea and say, well, if people identify either by signing in at the beginning of the meeting and are interested in actually like having, being interviewed, perhaps, and this is just an off-the-cuff idea, perhaps we could allocate a portion of every upcoming public meeting for the foreseeable future to interviewing someone if they show up and they put their name down as, yes, I'd like to be considered as a potential candidate.
with
Thoughts?
the interview online and.
No, I'm just thinking like even just if somebody shows up and they go through the whole meeting, then when we get to, I don't know, I'll make up a number and say like 6:30, then if somebody wants to be interviewed for the position, we would take 5 or 10 minutes, and if we think they pass muster, then, no, you're right, that's on the fly and a little bit rough. But
Yeah,
maybe they,
let's hash it out.
Let's talk.
yeah,
Let's-
but doing it during this meeting seems like a good way, because we're all here.
I would like to know if we can mine some of Wig's contacts.
Well, there are,
Thanks for.
So,
they're not
okay,
necessarily my contacts, I'm just pretty aware of them, because
Right, is there any way?
I
we
see
can
stuff just
some of
going
them-
across my computer from time to time for meetings. and
Right,
things
it would
like
just be
that.
nice if they could come across. the-
Yeah, I could try to start to be a little bit more conscious, so when I see one of those, I can set it aside in a folder and then, maybe collect it a little bit. I do also have to say, I thought you guys did a spectacular job the last time around in interviewing people and getting a lot of people who were really interesting.
That's a good batch. That's a good batch. I mean, Amy and Carl.
Yeah.
Have stayed me in two
They
batches.
were approved.
Well, but I thought, really, I thought it was one of the best efforts.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
appreciated that.
we pulled in a lot, and then except for you two, I mean, it was pretty dramatic, the drop off, And partly, I think it's because, I mean, as much as we undersell it, I mean, we really undersell it, you know, and it's like, you do not come in with any expectations, you know, that we're gonna change anything, you know, and so, but I think as much as we undersell it, you know, I think it's partly, you know, that it's more time than people think it is, because even though it's just 2 meetings a month, I mean,
Yeah.
that's a lot. It still turns out to be a lot. Maybe we can change that. You know, and I think also it's just that this dream of the Rock, you know, has moved along so far already. You know, and we also tell people it's like all your ideas that you have, we've thought about already. You know, and to the extent they're not implemented is because it's not going to happen. And we'll be happy to do it again, you know, but we just want to warn you, we thought about them already, and I think, you know, there's the concept of that, and then there's like, you know, the reality of it when you're now like having to take, you know, 3 hours out of your week, I mean, or 4, you know, and the time that it takes to get there and get back, you know.
Yeah, so,
Can we put up the next meeting, talk about memberships more?
You're in charge?
Yeah.
If I can add one more thing, you know, the young guy who heads Transit Matters was kind of the MC at the MIT Transportation Camp. And there are some people out there that have a lot of connections. I mean, that built up a lot of connections in, you know, worlds that are somewhat separate from us. And, you know, I would agree that there's a lot of work. I mean, you think it's 1 or 2 nodes, but it turns out to be a spider's web that you have to figure out. But we might just informally, even perhaps off to the side, try to have some conversations with some of these people that are working in transportation and ask them where they think the opportunities are. We're kind of embedded here, especially people who've been in it a long time, and, you know, we've got our practices, and some of you make great contacts for our meetings, and so we can have good conversations. But it might be interesting to understand what their points of view are. I mean, quite a few of them are enthusiastic about making progress, and yet they're kind of operating in a different universe.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, I suppose they are, you know, but as you know, I mean, there's only a few ways in this Commonwealth to get your ideas turned into reality, you know, and we are playing, you know, in all of those arenas, you know, and so I mean, and by that, I just mean pretty much the MPO is the arena, you know, and I mean, we can branch out a little more, you know, into, you know, the broader state arena, but we have more influence, you know, within the MPO arena, and with our interaction now with our TAC. I mean, we're, to the extent that, you know, we really make the effort, you know, to understand, you know, and contribute to that process, I mean, we will have as much influence, I think, as we can get, you know, and so maybe what we can do, and this is maybe to your point, is that we can do more outreach to them and find out what it is that they would like, you know, to see implemented, and then help them develop their ideas and get them, you know, with a real plan, you know, that can be considered, you know.
Yeah, but for example, this is pretty contemporary, and I'm sure you've noticed it. You know, there's the MPO, there's the T, that everybody here knows the T pretty well. There's the MPO, and Len and a few others have started to really understand that quite well. There's the State House, which is where the bills come. But there are also things like business interests. I mean, as you can see right now, Harvard and some of the business community are pushing very hard on the connections to Harvard-Alston, to Kendall, to North Station. Now that's you know, that's a single push of a small number of vested interests, but they're going to make progress with that because they're powerful entities, and that may not be the right answer. But there's an example of a group who's playing in the space and moving pretty quickly and taking advantage of the derailments to push their agenda. So you know, you can have things come up. And Massport's a pretty big player too. I mean, we don't always focus on the airport, but Massport's a pretty big player because they have an awful lot of money. And their long-term plans aren't silver lining. So, you know, they've got a next generation of plans coming on how people get in and out of the airport. Anyway, I didn't want to scratch this. But.
Okay. So, next, thank you. Next on the agenda is discussion about the fare increase. Is that something we want to?
Well, I thought someone wanted, did you want to have an agenda, the discussion about fare increases?
Yeah, I think it came up, somewhere, or it came up in the executive committee.
Yeah, right.
And I thought it would be good for the ROC to discuss it, and potentially good for the ROC to come up with a position either for or against the fare increase, or at least have some kind of, some kind of debate, some kind of deliberation. So I can provide my opinion. I guess we could start there, but
Sure.
Happy to hear what other people think.
I certainly have an opinion. No, I'm interested in yours.
So I think, in general, I'm in favor of this particular fare increase. I don't think it's a drastic fare increase. Looking at what the last time the fares were increased, it's percentage-wise, it's about 6 or 7% over 2 years. A little bit more than inflation, right? I think more importantly, though, that rider contributions are a good source of funding for the T. I think if we detach funding or detach fares from funding, we kind of get in a situation where we were, say, 10 years ago, where the T was severely underfunded. All support was coming from the state. So I think the fare ratio, the fare recovery ratio has increased a bit. And I also think that looking at other trans agencies, both within the U.S. and within Europe, there is support for a moderate fare. I don't think that our fare is high by kind of international standards, looking at what a lot of the European trans agencies charge or what the U.S. trans agencies charge. So I think there's balance there. So, I support it more than some of the folks who say, no, we should increase fares, but I think that's depriving T of a source of funding that they are looking for operations, covering costs. I think looking at the cost structure, things like that, that's, at least from the T's perspective, that's an independent conversation. I still think we need to have good cost controls on a number of things, but again, that's kind of in the current structure that's dealing with fares. So I think, Glenn, you brought up some concern about putting out a statement in favor of the fare increase if the state were then to roll it back. I'd certainly share that concern, but I don't have a big concern with this particular fare increase. That's my piece. I'd be interested to see what other people think.
Well,
I kind of agree. I think now's not the time to say that we can't contribute to the T. Because if we expect other people, including state general coffers, to contribute, especially when it's needed, I think that we should also be in favor of that. I do have some, and I know the mayor of Boston has made a pretty big push against it, but I think it's the wrong time to pile on, given the problems that the T is facing, and it's the right time to offer some support and ask for other people who can provide support, like the general court.
I just wish
provide support.
someone could give me another example where someone says the cost to make something has gone up and I need to charge you more for it. And people say, but no, you need to give me even better before I'm going to pay me for this increase that you're going to charge me. It's like, it just drives me crazy that people say we need to give them better service for the fare increase, when the fare increase is just trying to deal with the cost, with the increase in the cost of the services. It would be different if we were saying, okay, cost of service to provide service has gone up by 5%, and we're gonna charge you 10%. You know, that's not what's happening, you know. And even if we were to do that, it would be like, well, the service isn't gonna improve me for this current fare increase. We're charging you more, me, so we can give you better service, me, after the fare increase, because in order to increase service, improve service, it's gonna take more money, you know, and it's gotta come from somewhere. I mean, and look, I mean, I definitely understand that fare increases are regressive, and I'm not in favor of anything regressive fundamentally, you know, and the only thing that would make me feel better about anything that's regressive is if there were means testing, you know, and I hope we get to that point at some point in time, you know, but we're not there now, and so I think, you know, these fare increases were pretty moderate, and it's just, I'm so disappointed in Marty, you know, get it out there like that, because, I mean, he understands budgets, you know, it's like, you know, this has been budgeted in, you know, and it's like, it just does a real disservice, I mean, to the people who are running the team, who are trying to do this, I mean, as best they can with respect to the fare increases, which were legislated to be, you know, at this rate, which was a pretty moderate and predictable rate. I mean, we as a group really pushed for that. It was like we wanted regular small fare increases that people could predict and count on, rather than, you know, these like 25-30% fare increases that came every 4 or 5 years that were like a shock. And even Dempsey was like, we need better service before we can charge, you know, more fares. It's like, what? I mean, it's like, it's like they know better. They know better. You know, it's just want to smack them. You know, just.
You know, there is one thing that does bother me. We knew that distribution of cards was going to be a real issue in the low-income communities that use the T. And they did a great job for a few months when the Charlie cards came out, and then they abandoned that job. And the poorer people pay more for every ride they take.
Yeah.
And so that is something worth looking at within the fare issue. I mean, I'd be fine with poorer neighborhoods paying less. If you're a rich person, you live in a poor neighborhood, great. You know, there's some income diversity in that neighborhood. You know, that doesn't have to be the way, but maybe there's some way. I mean, that really has been bad. And since I've been riding the buses a lot the last year and a half, much more than I used to, it's really clear that the people who have less money pay more to use the service.
I could not have said it better myself as to what Len just said and what Wig just said. So instead of trying to reiterate that, I'll just say absolutely. But I'll take it one step further and say, if we, the agency, the MBTA, if we had AFC 2.0 all rolled out and it was deployed, it had been rocking and rolling for, let's say, 6 to 12 months, and there wasn't any means testing in place, I think we would be well served to be clamoring for that. But AFC 2.0 is not in place. It's going to be quite a while. Until that point, I think the best that we can do is the regular small-ish percentage increases.
One thing that I haven't heard mentioned yet is the idea that increasing T fares without increasing other state fees, transportation fees, like unhooking them, having T fares go up, and gas tax. Or tolls.
Yep, and tolls.
That's problematic.
It's good.
That skews incentives. And that's not MBTA's control to make that decision, but factoring that in, I think, is important to the discussion. Anyone who didn't speak wants to say something?
Yeah, well, that was part one of what I was going to say. Part two is that we've had Paul Regan and Jim both in here saying you can raise fares, but we still need more money. And they want $100 million, and they have some big ideas of how they want to get it. And I think that's the role that this organization can play. That's the sort of, those are the push, the buttons that we can push in advancing that. Because, you know, if the ROC wants to take a position that says we support regular, predictable, reasonable fare increases, I think that's great. But the long term, the sort of next step is how do we get that next bigger pot of cash?
For operations.
Sure, for the all that money that they want that, you know, raising fares just isn't gonna get you.
Because my feelings is that the state, if it wanted, it could give us money, you know, to operate the system better. And that's where the congestion point, that's where the clog is. I mean, it's like one of the reasons we have problems getting the capital out the door is because we don't have people on the operations side, you know, to deal with the projects. I mean, and I mean, as it is now, I mean, you have lots of people working on the capital side who need input. I mean, from people on the operations side, and they're just not there. I mean, they're either not there or they're maxed out. You know, because what we've done, you know, all along, I mean, it's like been like reform before, you know, fund, you know, whatever that catchphrase was. I mean, and all that meant was like cutting people being off the payroll. You know, it's like we can't have, you know, like we can't have lots of FTEs because, you know, fully funded FTEs is just going to cost us a lot later on, you know, and so we don't have that expertise in-house. We bring in a lot of consultants, and I understand for the most part they're good, you know, but they're not here all the time, you know, and if it's not their role, you know, to be there to interface with capital, you need to go out and get them, and in this market it becomes pretty expensive to do that. The whole point though is that we just don't have people on the operations side. And that's where, you know, we could use the money, and it's like, I don't know where the $50 million the governor just said he's going to give is going to go. I mean, I'm certainly not going to look a gift horse in the mouth. All I heard was that, you know, he came from some extra funding, but I'm not sure where it's going. But if it's not going in operations, I don't know what's good it's really going to do. You know, and to say it's like put it in operations, and whatever we do, it's going to take some time, right? You know. These capital projects, even if you start them tomorrow, I mean, you know, they're not going to be done, I mean, for years. I mean, and in that meantime, I mean, you're going to have, you know, stuff happen either from deterioration or just random clustering of events. I mean, in fact, I mean, sometimes it just looks like that the whole system's crumbling because you've had like a cluster of events. I mean, and my understanding of statistics is that the best indicator of something random is clustering, you know, and that clustering, it gives you the illusion, you know, that there's really like something really systemic going on, but no, it's just like, you know, you have some, and you know, this derailment hit the signals, and it's just like so, you know, it's like, and I guess one other thing I'll say is just, for me, I hate rail. I hate rail. You know, I understand it, you know, but there are no degrees of freedom on rail. I mean, so you have a breakdown, you know, especially because we have just one track. I mean, so you have a breakdown and nothing's going past it. You know, it's like you're crippled, you know, and I much prefer to see us build out a really good, robust roadway system that involves that's transit, that's geared towards transit, electric, so we can get, take care of the environment, because we need a good environment. I'm not taking that lightly at all, and whether they're AVs or not, we can develop a really robust, roadway network, where you just do congestion price or whatever, so that it's used as a transit system. So it's like, if you want to come in, in your SLV, during rush hour, it's going to cost you like $10. But if you're taking, a shuttle or a bus of any size, it'll cost you a whole lot less. And so the roadway, it may not be as efficient in terms of respect to a train, in terms of the number of people per unit space you can move, but it's a lot more robust. It's not one of these cases where you get a derailment, or someone gets sick. Because you have medical emergencies on trains, nothing's going anywhere, it's just and we got the technology, I think, to make that, a lot more robust, whether they're AVs or not, so I'd like to see us think about just using the roads more as a public transit system, rather than just relying on rail.
Well, the one pushback I offer on that is the cities in the world, especially in Europe and Asia, that move people around the best rely on rail.
Are they double tracked?
I don't know, but that's a good question. I should look for. But, yeah, I never travel for myself, but I go to these conferences once a year that are in different countries, and so I get to see the transit systems everywhere. And everywhere I go, except for parts of South and Central America, has much better transit systems and much fewer road vehicles.
So on this discussion topic, am I paraphrasing incorrectly? I didn't hear a strong sentiment for the ROC to weigh in either way on this particular fare increase. Am I
If someone wants to, as I said in the executive, I will, I'm not going to go against it. If someone makes a good argument for it, I'll vote for it. I'm not going to vote against it.
paraphrasing, but I didn't hear a sentiment.
I think the sentiment expressed was support for increasing revenues.
Right.
So I'm happy to take a pen to an article, or to a letter, and then present it, and then we can see if we want to vote on that, to present that as an argument, as opposed to kind of, voting on an idea, if you will, if that makes sense.
And do you envision that incorporating some of the ideas we talked about that not just focused on fare increase, but the idea of...
Yes, I would try to incorporate everything. I think the idea that I'm hearing from everybody is that regular fare increases are a reasonable position, but also there's more that needs to be done, right? And I think you had a good point about other governmental fees, kind of tolls or congestion charging is kind of where I was finishing with you, with your thought, and kind of saying, okay, the fare increases can be fair, but there's also a lot of other stuff going on that's not fair, and it's kind of balance the whole view, right, for a T-rider to get a better system.
Just in case you didn't see it, there was an article in Commonwealth Magazine. They might be an online-only magazine. I think it was end of May.
Yep, I think I know what you're talking about.
Okay, yeah, they had very specific figures about gas tax last change here, rolled back, tolls versus the trend of fares. So I've been sharing that around numerous times when the topic of the MBTA fare increase comes up as not a diversionary tactic, but essentially like a fact dissemination.
And I'd like to see us really pursue needs testing too, and the CIF should re-engage in that process, and really try to, take the lead on it if necessary. I know there was some talk about an FFCB, but I think that's a really good way to go.
So thanks in advance for drafting something.
Well, thank you. Again, I'm getting very ambitious this month. I agreed to some stuff from the CIF.
You're a keeper from the last batch. One of our
I
best.
think I'm the one left from my section.
One of the best.
So the next topic is approval of minutes. We got those, thank you very much. It's thorough and clear as usual. Appreciate it.
I have motion to approve.
Second.
Yeah. All in favor? Any opposed or abstentions? Okay. Thank you. Is this?
This is a letter for
Let's take this.
this is just a little revised from the one that I sent out. weeks ago, and it's for the UPWP, and the main reason for doing it is because the MPO is funding us through the UPWP, and so I think it's good to acknowledge that, and in the process of doing so, we express appreciation for their support of us, and along with that, pulled out a subset of the studies that were on the list that pertain to transit, and I really do think they are good studies. I attended a couple of the UPWP working group meetings, and I was impressed with the process and how thorough they are in going through the studies and talking to people about what the studies are going to do, and also the RTAC, which we're part, had a couple presentations on the UPWP, and Sandy Johnson's really good at explaining things, and so I like the process a lot, and I think coming from a research background, I like this kind of research. I think from that, if it's done well, you learn a lot, and yeah. So the deal is that I submitted a letter, and as I told you all, if we don't approve it, I can withdraw the letter, but if we approve this, then this letter will go on our website. And I know that Jim Aoli said that we should send them anything that we put out there. I don't know if I'm gonna send them this though. Somehow I just don't think seeing our letter on UPWP is something that the FSC is going to be interested in. But maybe I'll just send
Jim Aloisi?
Huh?
Jim Aloisi?
No, the guy who's
Joe
Joe. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
sorry. Yeah, Aoli. I think it's a guy. Sorry.
No, I do that too.
Yeah.
Between Jim Aloisi and Joe Aiello, yeah.
No, that's the kind of mistake I make even if I had 8 hours of sleep, so I'm just bad that way.
They're both good guys.
Yeah.
Yep, here.
I support this letter, even though it's unusual to support it after the fact. I think it's a great letter. I appreciate your doing it.
Yep. We saw the draft, well, some of us saw the draft before.
Yeah, and I got the letter in on time, but like I said, I could always pull it back.
No, I really appreciate your taking the initiative.
Yeah.
Speaking
Thumbs
for
up.
myself.
Motion to approve the letter?
Second?
All in favor, do I do this? We got our hands raised.
All in favor?
Did you just do that?
Yes. Awesome. I think we got a co-chair.
There was this enthusiasm before I was on. No, it's fine. It's fine.
Any opposed or abstained? So, thank you, Larry.
One month a year.
Any external meetings that anyone wants to bring up, draw attention to?
Well, RTAC talked about the UPWP, and that was about it. And so, I don't have anything really.
I mentioned, I've been catching parts of MPO meetings. Glenn gets to some MPO meetings. Right now is especially important time because they're going through the cycle of their formal documents that get submitted to the federal government, the transportation conformity documents, and the last one of which is the long-range transportation plan. And last week they weren't ready for that, so it was kind of a grab bag. And I mentioned this to Lynn, I think, but there was an interesting sidebar in the middle of the meeting between Scott Peterson, who's really the data guy and runs a lot of the groups at the MPO, and I'm kind of blank, the person who's been looking at, I guess, Focus 40.
Oh, it's Scott Hamway.
Yeah, Scott Hamway. And this is not something I'm complaining about, or I just noting it surprised me. They're doing very kind of informal, incomplete modeling on the Focus 40 projects, and so there was good-hearted discussion between the two of them, and for the benefit of the MBO members and attendees, that the modeling they're doing for that work is not really rigorous enough to include a lot of the connections and their impacts on the model and that kind of thing, that everybody should take those outcomes with a grain of salt. They're basically exploratory to help with conceptual thinking, rather than the level of rigor that goes into the long-range transportation plan, which has to be really, really well done to pass federal muster and federal review. So, just that was a little quirky from my point of view, but I mean, they're both hard workers, but it really put a bit of caution in my mind that, their numbers and their numbers, and some numbers are just kind of breadboard to see what they might look like under certain circumstances, and others are a lot more rigorous, and because they have to be relied upon. So that was a unusual happening in this room.
Thanks.
Last Thursday.
Next is old and new business. I'm going to say two things briefly. One is City of Boston is putting down a red bus line in Brighton, or in Allston, on Brighton Avenue. I'm super excited about that. And
That was something you could close down.
the preferred option, yeah. So the preferred option that they didn't want us to talk about at the time that I mentioned it was to take one whole lane from Union Square, which is where the fire station is, and Jackson Man School, Twin Donuts. From there, along Brighton Ave, inbound towards the Star Market, Packard's Corner. So now there's, or within days, there'll be a 24-hour red painted bus and bike lane, and some curb usage changes. So
Curb usage meaning replacing parking with loading zones, or just places for cars to go so they don't double park? Is that-
the one that I have seen the signs up for already is commercial loading zones.
Okay.
So taking some spaces, some otherwise parking spaces, and making them short-term commercial loading.
I think it's necessary.
And I just realized the other thing that wasn't actually on. Any other old or new business?
Well, I guess it's a one new business. Shall I? Okay. Just by coincidence, I happened to be heading through Harvard Square and needed to take the 71, 73 down Mount Auburn. 2 days ago was the beginning of the Harvard Busway project, which has closed the upper. It's closed one of the two busways. So I was very pleased to have that timing, because I didn't expect to be getting there. In brief, the signage, I think, is excellent. There was a red shirt customer service person right at the entranceway to that upper busway. Upper busway is one that's closed. She was there, I could tell, she was there specifically to tell people where to go when the upper busway is closed.
Yeah.
As soon as you got above ground, sign right in front of you. You go 100 yards, another sign. You go to another 100 yards, another sign. Absolutely no problems, very well done. The service being managed around that Mount Auburn corner of, around the Brattle, Elliott Street, the Bennett Loop, incredibly well managed. Transit police officer stopping traffic to let pedestrians cross where there isn't even a crosswalk. Buses flowing in quite a ballet. I was very, very impressed. And this is only the second weekday of that busway closure. I could not have been happier with what I saw. And this was peak rush hour morning on the second workday. Phenomenal. I'm going to try to keep my eye on it and get over there as much as I can, hopefully at least once a month, but
How, is that a permanent,
6 months for the upper busway rehab and then 6 months for the lower busway. But so far, I think we'll be okay.
Great,
Yeah.
great. And I think they're gonna stretch it, I think they're not gonna work during the winter time too, or during the.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so
Hadn't heard that.
they may, yeah, so I think you may stretch over 2 years. I just read, a little bit, they had like an information, they had information meetings and then they had like a little overview of the project, on a website or whatever, so.
Yeah.
And the understanding was that they were gonna try to avoid working during the winter as much as possible, which is makes.
have to wait outside.
Yeah, so then, even though you phrased it to 6 months, it seeming like it'll just take a year, we may take longer, stretch over a longer period just in order to, I think that's a nice trade-off.
Gotcha. So in other words, you're saying it's going to be 6 months closure and then everything reopens for 6 months and then they close the other one for 6 months
Yeah.
and work? That makes sense.
Yeah,
So theoretically, 18 months from beginning to end,
right.
not 2 years, right?
Yeah, although I didn't see like, a number assigned to the total length of
Okay.
the project, but that
Cool.
they would try to not work, so that they would try to work during the winter as little as possible.
And can I throw in something for 90 seconds about the red line derailment? I think I heard about this right just before the last operations meeting, but I wanted to put it out there. I'm still trying to gather information, but I have from a well-informed connection that one of the things being checked out for the red line issue was something called a wear plate. If you're not familiar with what a wear plate does, essentially it's a sacrificial piece of metal that is installed in between two major components of a vehicle that are designed to have absolutely no wear on them. So in other words, if you've got component A and component B that are really important and really expensive and really hard to replace, but they would normally be touching, you put something called the wear plate in between them of a softer metal like brass or bronze or whatever, and that wear plate essentially just acts as almost like a friction-bearing surface, and that wear plate is disposable. It literally just gets eaten up, and periodically it gets replaced. Wear plates not only disintegrate deliberately, but because they're constantly being installed, removed, installed, they can fall out. So that's apparently one of the things that's being checked out, is whether a wear plate had gone too long and maybe had failed or had just come loose, to be determined, but that's apparently a leading candidate.
So then, the debris causing the derailment, or the lack of a wear plate causing further wear to the protective components causing the derailment?
The latter, yeah. A lack of the wear plate or maybe a prematurely decomposed wear plate led to, perhaps, this is all preliminary, this is, I would say, it's conjecture, but it's based on the way that these things are designed to operate, and these are all facts about how these systems are designed. But yeah, it's entirely possible that two components were meshing that are not designed to mesh, and that caused an early failure.
Any thoughts on if that's a standard feature across the industry or just within the T? Like, is that a...
Wear plates in general?
Yeah.
I think it's been phased out as a technology in favor of bearings, bushings, and such things. It's primarily, I want to say it's the kind of thing you'd have on railroad vehicles of, late 1960s, 1970s. Seriously.
So it's
Seriously, because there are better ways of doing that. And I believe that, for example, the 1800 series cars, all the new CRC cars, I believe they're using bushings and bearings instead of wear plates.
Good to hear that improved.
I'm sorry?
Is it good to hear that technology improved?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a little concerned that they still don't know what it is. I mean, nothing nefarious at all, it's just that, I'm just saying that it's taking so long, and I hope it doesn't turn out to be something systemic, where it's like all of a sudden, you gotta pull like a whole bunch of train lines over, so it's like, we got this much fixed,
My understanding of wear plates is that they are routinely inspected, and doing the inspection is practically is, or even doing the replacement of wear plates is just about as easy as changing brake shoes. It's like, you know, you pull the old one off, you put the new one on.
Just did that yesterday.
Yeah, I guess, yeah.
No, on transit vehicles, you change brake shoes like every couple of weeks. Yeah, brake shoes are, anyway, I'm gonna be following that very closely.
Thank you.
Thank you. Before we end, it's a chance for public comments. Any public comments in the second period?
Do you have a chance to introduce the thing I emailed about, the speed? I don't know if that's new business, old business, or we need to separate. I emailed late, when I was coming on my way here. So I don't know what got me thinking about this. We've got enough time. I'll be quick. I think it might have been the derailment that the run line was going to slow down. So I was like, oh, like, how fast does it normally go? And I think what I started to find was that the T under normal operations runs a lot slower than almost every other transit agency I could look at, except for New York City, which runs even slower. Their issues seem to be on purpose. They seem to purposely slow down their trains for safety because of the past issue. So that got me thinking, do we do the same things? Do we slow our trains down for safety? Is there another issue? So my first question was, is this something that the ROC has explored in the past, or is there already like a body of research on it? And my second question was, you know, I was interested in exploring it, usually part of the CIF, but also wanted to see if anybody from operations felt strongly, I guess, as it were, about taking it up, or if they'd have any concerns about exploring it in CIF. The thinking was, I don't know if it's necessarily an operational thing, but if it were signals that we needed to make the trains go run faster, that would be something the CIF would say, okay, we need to invest in signals, and I know that's part of the red line, orange line thing. But also the blue line is kind of just as slow, and the green line, obviously, even the right of way for the D line is pretty slow as well. So that's what I was thinking. I guess any objections to exploring in CIF, or any knowledge of anything kind of along those lines as to why the trains are apparently a little bit slower than comparable systems.
Probably something I could ask about in my office.
Oh, perfect.
But then again, John, just I'll give a copy.
Yeah,
He's who I would ask.
Yeah, he's who you ask.
And so just say, a copy and ask him.
So, I mean, I don't have a problem. I mean, for me, it's like it used to be, that Bonnie Wheeler, who was in CIF, was intensely interested in commuter rail. And so we would do commuter rail stuff because she couldn't impact these, but and so it's like wherever the person who's really interested in the issue goes is where that issue is explored, because we don't really feel proprietary about any given topic. I mean, it's really, and so to the extent you want to take the, I'll help out if you can, and anyone from any other group would help out, but it could originate from CIF.
Perfect.
So I'm fine with that.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll take exception though. I mean, if somebody was covering, the blue line extension to Lynn without me involved, I'd be a little upset.
We'd have you call in.
Yes.
All right, so I think that was my piece. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Yeah, thanks.
All right.
Really, really ambitious this one. That's. I have to scale back.
What was it?
I have to scale back a little bit, man.
Yeah.
We'll see. Maybe throw a lot of darts and maybe one will hit.
Nothing's a straight line, the market is it's like, as long as it's a general trend line.
Sure.
So we good? Yep, so the last item on the agenda is adjournment.
Motion to do so.
Unless there's more public comment.
Oh, I asked earlier, I didn't get any.
Okay.
So I heard move. Doing this
Motion to adjourn?
Second?
That's
Great, thank you.
Thanks, everyone. for-
Thanks, everybody.
We're going to sign it.
So is this your last meeting, Eric?
Yes.
Well, thanks, Eric, for all your
Thanks so
work.
much.
Oh, yeah, thank you very much.
What are you doing for the rest of the summer?
I'm actually still going to be working at MassDOT, just not in the same role.
Okay, excellent.
Cool.
He's in the junior assistant GM role.
Okay.
Ready for me to conclude the stream? We're adjourned? Okay, stopping the stream. Thanks for watching online.
Thanks so much.